And thanks everybody for joining us. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes, 40-odd minutes, talking about analytics and how it can add value to any organization. If at any moment you have trouble seeing the slides or hearing my voice, just type in the chat window and Sean will attend to the matter. So today let's learn about the art of the possible, using data to drive value, to drive organizational, to move the needle in an organization. I'm hoping after our session today you walk away with an understanding of how you can practically begin using data to drive performance, some practical steps in that, some things to think about and ponder and possibly avoid. And finally, ending off with an overview of Microsoft's Power BI application that will help you, that will facilitate using data to add value to any organization. But first, let's reflect on why we're here. What you're looking at is a World Health Organization report on the Ebola outbreak. It happened to be made in Microsoft's Power BI product, and it really shows relevance to how quickly information can be gathered together from, in this case, public and private sources to show a good overview of a current problem issue that needs to be resolved. And we'll dive more into the technology and how things like this can come together. But first, just a little bit about Hitachi Solutions. We're over 300 people, and we have a dedicated analytics group that's really more than, it's 100 plus people dedicated to technologies and methodologies to help customers drive their performance needs, their intelligence reporting and analytics needs. Of note, we're one of 6 partners in the world to help Microsoft guide its roadmap for BI products as well. We're the only partner in Canada who actually teaches at the Data Warehouse Institute. And along the way, we've had the pleasure of helping organizations like Suncor enable their retail analytics, Enbridge provide better maintenance on their pipelines, and Jazz provide better maintenance on their aircraft, as just some examples of where we've been, where we've enabled and done the processes we're about to go through. And it's important to understand what we mean when we say analytics. Analytics really is about enabling and changing and optimizing any business process, internal and external, and it's really using data to drive that optimization, drive that change, and initially drive that analysis. So whenever we think about analytics, we always think about what business process is it tied to, and how can we make that the outcome of that process better for all stakeholders. But really, what is BI? And it's all about people having access to the right information at the right time and really the right channel, meaning in the right context on the proper device, so that they can quickly understand what the information is telling them and they can quickly act on it. And that's actually another key. It's driving business process and also giving information that people can act with and not just a series and rows of numbers. So let's talk about how we get there. Carl Sagan, a noted astronomer, once said, somewhere something incredible is waiting to happen, is waiting to be known. And that's what I truly believe, that we all sit in meetings and we all know that if I just had that piece of data, I could make the decision better, faster, in a more accurate fashion. Oftentimes we'll all have the moment where we go, aha, I know I need to do something because my gut tells me I want to do this. And you don't have the data to drive that decision process. And really, what we're going to learn today is a practical way to start down that road, start using analytics to drive value, and you'll see through the presentation that there's empirical evidence of how using data as part of the culture of an organization, making decisions, can really add significant value to the organization. And if we take it one step further, it's about, in our society, in the business world, in our work life, it's about responding to changes in the outcomes that we see. It's about supporting new objectives. It's about increasing the quality of information that we see so we can act in a more informed fashion. And it's really also about providing and thinking about and being able to validate different approaches to the outcomes that we want to achieve, and different approaches to the outcomes that we think we can achieve. You know, there's a client that we work with that grew from selling chemicals out of the back of their truck in the 1960s to be the 5th largest chemical distributor in North America. And how they got there was by using data from day one and analyzing margins on the products they sell. And they sell thousands of chemical products. And using that information to really drive margin optimization across their customers so that they could expand from one truck to nationwide, actually North American-wide operations. And that's just one example of many that we'll talk about today, where they adopted data as part of their culture in meetings, in the hallways, so that anytime they make a decision, they have data points to validate it. But really, you know, we talk about the problem of doing analytics. Sometimes I actually think about this as the opportunity. We all work in places where there's lots of data. It's in various systems. It's in spreadsheets. It's in an ERP. It's in a supply chain system. It's in various forms. But really, it's an opportunity. And I'll give an example. The Boston Red Sox, one of the founding ball clubs of MLB in baseball, are adopting a data-driven culture. And this is an organization that had 8 years of sellouts, and they're using information to better understand their fans, their patrons, so that they can provide a better experience, a more fun experience, customized to the fan, so that they can maintain their streak of near sellouts every season. So again, it just reflects on the fact that an organization of any size, maturity, can add value, can see value by using information. But again, we have to be careful when we use the information. We have to understand its context, where it comes from, and we have to understand that deriving connections between different outcomes is part of an understanding and maturity that we'll use as we go through the use of the data within our walls. But there's challenges to unlocking this data. So there's data sitting in various places in databases, in documents, in social media traffic. But it's really about unlocking information and using the information to drive 3 very large goals, what I call wildly important goals. So timeliness. As we look to use data, it's got to be timely. Data that's 3 weeks old is very hard. It's hard to use to make a timely decision because it's looking in the rearview mirror. We have to think about the speed at which decisions are made in public and the private sector. They're increasing their speed, which means the ability to access the information in a timely fashion and support a rapid decision is increasing. And that speaks to the agility of just the way the world is working, that business, policy, societal needs are changing, and they're changing at internet speed. The demand on information is getting faster and faster. Take all this together, and we need to analyze outcomes, perform some scenario planning, do what-if analysis, so that we're ready to take the next step. If I drill into this, if I drill down into this, really around timeliness, what it really means is developing ways to monitor the outcome of any organization's goals and producing metrics, indicators, so that I can have a view to the goal and creating metrics that I can act on. Not just numbers on a spreadsheet, but actual values that I can act on, that I know that I can influence and change. And it means that delivering that information has to be done in a way that's friendly to the user, it's easily consumable, and they can easily act on it or do additional deep dive analysis with it. And so that they can understand how it will support their strategies or how they need to change their strategies based on what they see. And again, we don't want to lose time to value. We don't want to lose the ability to change quickly. So we need to maintain an agile approach to how we make decisions, which means they absolutely need to have information that's accurate, that's easy to consume, that's easy to get at. So let's pause for a second and realize we know there's lots of information and data in the organization, and there's lots of demand on our time. There's lots of demand on making decisions quickly. So how do we enable the easy consumption, use, and analysis of the data? Well, we can hire an army of people, and that's actually happening today. There's the New York Real-Time Crime Center produces stats on crime updated every minute, and it's actually done by an army of people sitting at their desk inputting information into giant spreadsheets which feed a main system, and the information is updated on several maps of the city so command officers can make decisions. Probably not a long-term solution, but it's working for now. We can buy some software. But buying Microsoft Office, buying Word, in fact, doesn't mean that you're going to create a Shakespearean novel. So software is important. It's an important application that we'll use to interpret the data, but it's not the end-all. We can deploy in the cloud, because the cloud is magical and it does everything. Again, it's part of the solution, but just putting a database in the cloud isn't going to unlock the golden nuggets of data that will drive performance and move the needle. What we really need to do is start thinking about governing our data. We need to think about enabling the use of the data that's accurate in a way that's going to drive decisions quickly and accurately, and that's going to help us move forward. It's another client that we work with, and it's a major alarm company that advertises in Toronto, and a few years ago they knew their sales could increase, so the CFO embarked on a project where he was able to analyze his data a lot quicker by spinning up a small data warehouse, analyzing his sales in a real-time fashion, i.e. the next day instead of 3 weeks later. That was coming out of his main sales system. And with that, and with some analysis of the senior salespeople, changed the way he would change the products he would market in each of his U.S. and Canadian regions. And over 5 years, the stock has gone up. It's nearly doubled. The cash flow has gone up significantly, and the CFO of that alarm company is now the CEO. So the application of the methodology can apply across any organization of any size. But again, it began with him understanding and governing the data that he wanted to consume. So let's get started. Let's start putting something practical into play. Einstein has a saying that if we keep doing the same thing, we're not going to get a different result. Stephen Jobs actually said that if we think we can do something, we really can do it. And so that's the input into the next few slides. We can all start using data in a way that adds value to organizations today, because today we have the tools in front of us to do that. The first step is really developing a culture that uses data in its lexicon, its language. So whenever decisions are made, discussions are had, data points are used to validate decisions, validate gut feel. Do post-mortem analysis quickly and easily so that if, for example, you spin up a marketing campaign, you can easily assess the results of the outcome and then continue doing it or change it up as needed to make the outcome what you want or better. And it's about understanding the quality of the information we use and using that to meet our internal stakeholders, drive sales, for example, meet our external stakeholders, drive share price, meet legislation, meet regulation. But it begins by building a culture driven on data, one that a lot of organizations are already developing. The CEO of Procter & Gamble has said recently that he's betting the farm on analytics as a way to drive more consumer products from P&G into the hands of consumers by analyzing their spend patterns, their consumption patterns. So the use, the adoption of a data-driven culture is increasing. So data in our lexicon is a key component. A common way to start this endeavor, this journey, really is just pick one goal in the organization or your department and follow your hunch. Take some data that's available that may be within a system, that may be open data to, for example, the city of Victoria has open data on weather, on traffic, use that to inform some analysis that you do. Investigate different correlations about how your outcome, for example, your increase in sales may be affected by different variables. For example, do sales increase based on weather? Do sales increase based on changes in price? Do sales increase based on changes in house prices? Use that to create an analysis that you can communicate to your stakeholders, your boss. With that initial success, more questions are probably going to be asked of the analysis, which is exactly what you want. Because people will then see the benefit of what you've done, and it would drive sponsorship and a more programmatic approach to using this across the organization. But along the way, we need to be careful of lessons learned, best practices. So as an example, Hamilton Health put together a BI program 2 years ago to try and create and understand where services should be provided across that region. And they spend a lot of time understanding what drove patients to certain hospitals for certain care. And they spend a lot of time modeling it with statistical models to make sure that the correlations they developed were in fact empirically sound. After which point they created centers of excellence for certain services in the area, and it's been beneficial. But we know we need to with that, what they learned was if the first attempt at creating correlation didn't work, they would just keep going. So along the way, people will make mistakes. We'll learn from those, and we'll keep going. There'll be quality issues of the data, but let's not let that stop us. Any identifications of ways to improve the actual data itself are actually a benefit of doing this, of using analytics in this way. You know, another example is, again, in healthcare. Credit Valley Hospital had to improve the wait times in New York because people would show up and it would take them a very long time, even if you were severely injured. They studied, again, the process of people entering the ER, their wait time along the various stages of it being in the ER, and they changed the actual physical structure of the ER as well as how people entered and would flow through. What happened was ER wait times went down significantly, and they got more money from the government because of it. So again, applying an analytical approach to a business problem paid off large benefits to them. Bottom line, there is empirical evidence that says if you design a programmatic approach to using analytics in your culture, in your organization, there is a net dollar added value to doing this. Nucleus Research out of the US did a study in 2011 and in 2013, and they found significant value add in terms of money for every dollar you spend on analytics. Whether it's $10 or it's $13, there's significant value to creating, maintaining, and enhancing an analytical program in your organization. But to get there, it means a lot of things, as we just learned. It means adopting a different approach, asking different questions of the data, asking for more data, essentially freeing my data up so I can use it, so I can innovate, so I can grow and move the organization forward. You know, it starts small, learn from what you do, ask lots of questions, get a sponsor. Accenture did a study recently, and they found that really there are 4 keys to driving the use of information. It's identify the right indicators and metrics to monitor the outcome of what you want, so you can move forward. Establish a sense of community amongst analysts so that they can work together to share their information, share results, and move forward. Develop an analytical capacity within the organization, and be collaborative in this entire process. So hopefully by now we have a practical approach to starting small, adopting data, learning from that success, selling that success in the organization to drive an analytical approach to conducting our business. Whether we're in the public sector or the private, there's benefits to both. And Microsoft has an ability to support this approach with technology called Power BI. Power BI comes in really 2 flavors. It comes in Office 2013 through Excel, and Excel is the #1 BI tool in the world. And through Excel, through Power BI, there are new ways to consume data, to visualize data, to run correlation analysis of the data. And if you use Power BI within Office 365, you can add collaboration and you can add mobile capacity to the consumption of the information. If we, again, drill down into what Power BI is, it's really 4 components. And if you think about using data, it follows the data flow life cycle. First, we need to consume information. And within Power BI, we can consume information using Power Query to develop queries against data within our walls, or, for example, data that's available through an open source, like city data, through an OData feed. And we can then take data from different data sets. Again, we can marry, for example, weather data with sales data from our ERP system and come up with a set of analysis. And it's really broad in terms of the information we can consume. Any modern relational database, any big data file structure like Hadoop, any social media data like Twitter, there's plugins built in so that you can easily consume and use the information. And as an example, here is some Twitter traffic analysis done for a client that looks at Twitter traffic that is done organically or retweeted over time. And so you can instantly see patterns of recognition in social media to understand what people are saying about the organization. You can also look internally at your outcomes. For example, in retail sales, we can look at how our channels are doing across margins and dollars sold, and based on breakdown of category and sales channel, how they're doing. And again, what you'll notice in both visuals is there's a lot of information in one piece of real estate that people can take action on. For example, I see here that the bottom left is not performing as the top right. So how do I move my sales channels on the bottom left of the chart to the top right? That's an immediate actionable item that can come out of this. The second part of Power BI is now that we have data, we can actually create models, business models inside of Excel. Instead of having to rely on, for example, an IT analyst to create you a data mart, a database, you can create that model within Excel, again using data sources that you grab using Power Query, and you can model the business process that you want. And with that model, you can then expose it to the UI within Power BI. But as an example of what you can do with these models, is you can do what-if analysis and you can do forecasting of what would happen if. As an earlier example, I said, what would happen if if my price went down by $1? Well, I can run a regression analysis within the model within Power BI, and I can look at a trend pattern based on variables that change, decrease in price, increase in price, keeping price the same, and I can look at it and filter it by the icons on the top by my sales categories. So again, you can quickly consume and ask questions of the data all in one interface. Third, now that we have data and now that we've created a model for the data, let's create dashboards and reports so that users can easily consume it, ask us questions, ask questions of the data themselves, and try and find ways to change the outcome and move the needle. And those visuals can be in charts and maps and graphs with the ability to drill down into details, fine details of the information, and also be able to link other sources of information within the same view. And as an example, this is a dashboard of sales promotions across time, broken down by the various types of promotions I do, and I can see performance and how it's gone up and down over the number of months on the chart. And if I wanted to do some deep dive analysis, I could easily look at my Asian versus my North American promotions and see how they did on a metric by metric basis. and then I could dive even deeper into the promotion by drilling into the chart. Lastly, there's another very powerful visual, which is geospatial analysis. So showing information and outcomes on a map. For example, we've built a brownouts map for a utility where they predict brownouts based on consumption patterns of the generating equipment. So that at any time, a consumer can go online, take a look at the map, and realize there may be a brownout in their area, which may be a blackout. Producing information on a map is a very, very powerful visual and easy to understand by a wide range of audiences. So as another example, this is, again, the retail client looking at sales on a map with the ability to filter it by region, by gender of customer, by marital status of customer, by the income of that customer. And I can immediately see that my sales are focused on the western part of the U.S., and I don't have a lot of sales within the central or eastern side. So I'm seeing actionable information in a Power BI dashboard that I can easily create a call to action to change the outcome, and also make predictions on what would happen if I, for example, increase my sales staff in the eastern part of the United States. So having built a foundation of data analysis and dashboards, we can then take it one step further. In Office 365, maintained and managed by Microsoft in the cloud, we can easily share those insights amongst our stakeholder community, share the models we've developed to produce the analysis, and be able to access data from the cloud, access information from the cloud to our on-premise data sources. So then I can have a very rich visual for people to consume. I can also, when in Office 365, use natural language questions, English questions to ask questions of the data. For example, in this, I could say, how many sales did Bob the salesperson do in June? And I would get an answer back on a chart. Without having to write complex IT queries, I can easily ask English questions, get back an answer in an easily consumable visual. And lastly, when in the cloud, I can produce, see, and consume the information on any device, because the presentation can be done in Silverlight or an HTML5 rendering, meaning HTML5 will be supported by any platform. So iPad, Surface, laptop, I can consume the information no matter where I am, on the road, at home, in my office. In a nutshell, Microsoft Power BI offers the ability through a common user interface, again, the #1 BI tool in the world, Excel, to analyze data, manage it centrally with central models that are created and maintained in Excel. And then in Office 365, you can collaborate, you can ask questions, you can consume it on any mobile device. So let's leave with one parting thought. Hopefully in the last half an hour or so, you've learned that getting started is at your fingertips. The tools are right in front of you, and we can all create information and reports so that the right information is shown to the right stakeholders at the right time and in the right context. And we can all drive value and help our organizations move forward. So thank you for your time. We very much appreciate it. There is further contact information on the screen, and I'll just turn it over to Sean to close us out.